When I agreed to take on the role of a foster mother 2 years ago, I never imagined how profoundly it would reshape my life. My name is Rebecca Miller. I live in a peaceful suburban neighborhood in Ohio, where I work as a high school teacher. I've always been someone who believed that stories could mend broken hearts, but I quickly discovered that some hurts run deeper than any book can reach. The day I first met Ethan, my foster son, he was only 12. He arrived at my front door carrying nothing more than a tattered backpack and a stuffed bear whose fur was worn thin from years of being held. His caseworker gently warned me not to expect much conversation from him. His past had left him cautious, silent, and mistrustful of adults. Yet, when his large brown eyes lifted to meet mine, I felt an ache inside me, an overwhelming mix of sorrow and determination. The first few weeks were challenging. At dinner, Ethan barely spoke. My attempts at silly jokes never earned a smile. He avoided eye contact and often slipped away into his bedroom for hours. But slowly, I began to notice something. Whenever he thought he was alone, he would reach into his backpack, pull out a small wooden box, and carefully lay its contents out across his bed. One evening, after finishing up in the kitchen, I walked past his room and stopped. The door was slightly ajar. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, arranging the objects with intense focus. They weren't toys, not in the ordinary sense, but treasures of his past. A photograph of himself with his mother, a toy car missing its wheels, a wrinkled letter, and a fragile paper airplane. He shifted them as if reconstructing a world where the pieces of his life still fit together. I didn't want to intrude, but my voice slipped out in a whisper. "Those look really important." He startled, scrambling to put everything back into the box. His wide eyes met mine, filled with panic and shame, as though I'd caught him doing something forbidden. I raised my hands gently. "It's okay, Ethan. You don't need to hide them from me. I think it's wonderful that you have things that remind you of the good moments." For the first time, he spoke more than a single word to me. His voice trembled, but his words were steady enough. "They're all I have left." That moment cracked my heart wide open, and bound us together in a way I hadn't expected. Over the next several months, I gave him the space to share at his own pace. Sometimes, he would bring his wooden box into the living room and sit with it quietly while I read. Little by little, he began to tell me the stories behind each item. The toy car. His mother gave it to him the day she promised they'd go to the fair. The letter, written by his father before he disappeared. The paper airplane, folded on the last day he saw his younger brother. Each object was more than a trinket. It was a piece of his heart. And every story reminded me how children carry grief and hope side by side, along with an incredible strength to keep moving forward. The real turning point came one stormy afternoon. Ethan sat on the couch, staring at the photo of his mom, unusually quiet. I sat beside him and asked softly, "Are you missing her a lot today?" He nodded, his eyes welling up. Then he whispered, "I'm scared I'll forget what she looked like." Without thinking, I wrapped my arms around him. He stiffened at first, unaccustomed to such closeness, but slowly melted into the embrace. "You won't forget," I assured him gently. "Her face isn't just in the photo. It's here." I touched his chest. "And here." I tapped his forehead. From that day forward, we created a new ritual. Every Saturday, Ethan and I would sit together and write down one memory he wanted to preserve. Sometimes it was about his mother's laughter, other times about a game he played with his brother. We placed each note into a jar we named the Memory Keeper. Gradually, his walls began to fall. He started helping me cook in the kitchen, laughing when flour dusted the counters. He invited a friend over from school. The boy who once sat alone guarding a box of fragments was beginning to create new moments worth cherishing. 2 years later, I found myself at his middle school graduation. Ethan stood proudly at the podium and delivered a speech on resilience. How even when life falls apart, you can find ways to rebuild. Tears streamed down my face as I listened, realizing the child who had once hidden behind silence and a wooden box was now standing tall before a cheering audience. That evening when we returned home, Ethan handed me the wooden box. "I don't need to keep these hidden anymore," he said softly. "They'll always be part of me. But now I have new memories too, ones with you." I held him close, overcome with emotion. Becoming a foster parent had been the hardest and most rewarding decision of my life. Because sometimes in the quietest moments, a child carefully guarding pieces of a past, you discover the truest meaning of family.